it is a significant that we have such high-level members of the US department in Doha, in the capital of Qatar, for these talks. Of course, they are indirect. That coming as a bit of a surprise, I suppose, to a degree. However, we just look at how severe and how apart polar these two sides currently are when it comes to various different points. So to get the likes of Kushner here alongside Wickoff is quite extraordinary. It is a positive side. We're not seeing the big set piece images of American and Iranian officials shaking hands, but these technical talks are where the hard work of turning a fragile ceasefire into a workable agreement is actually done. And Qatar says the US envoy Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are meeting mediators rather than Iranians, and that they are separate tracks to dealing with nuclear issues, economic and state performance concerns, and regional security here. And that kind of compartmentalised structure is exactly what you'd expect when two sides that still don't trust each other are trying to wind down a war rather than end it overnight. And realistically, these discussions, Tom, can move the process forward, but only to a point. What we're seeing is a classic diplomatic pattern, public denial from Tehran of any talks in the lead up to this, coupled with quiet exchange on implementation details through intermediaries. And Iranian officials insist there are no meetings at any level with the Americans in the coming days, yet they have sent 3 technical delegations to Doha to go through the memorandum of understanding line by line from the ceasefire. Clauses in that, such as Lebanon, the handling of shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, and the release of billions of dollars in frozen assets. And that allows both sides to claim they're holding firm politically while still testing whether this memorandum of understanding can be made to work in practice. If they can lock in the progress over these technical files in the next 60-day ceasefire period, it opens the door to a more durable arrangement. If not, the ceasefire really risks becoming just a pause between rounds of escalation, Tom.
And Fiona, there has already been flare-ups in the Strait despite the agreement. From where you are, how stable does the situation look there?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. As we've seen over the past few weeks, various vessels being hit, but these compliments go to the heart of what Iran believes. These compliments go to the heart of what Iran believes it fought the war over. And the ceasefire on the main one is this Strait of Hormuz, and they believe they are in control of this waterway. So that is crucial to their positioning in these negotiations, albeit indirect. So the Strait of Hormuz, we have seen movement, as we've been reporting here on Asia 1 for weeks now, which is a vast improvement. There has been those pauses where the IRGC have stepped in and halted movement. We've also seen those attacks on civilian vessels, which has led to the IRGC attacking those. So we have seen closure on occasion as a result of that. But Thailand today is saying that 10 vessels have transited through the Strait of Hormuz, which is positive. We are nowhere near pre-war levels of the transiting from the Gulf water here, the Persian Gulf out through the Strait of Hormuz and onto the Gulf of Oman and beyond. So it is quite a difficult situation at present. And you know, this 60-day negotiation window is going to be really the crux. This is going to boil down to the Strait of Hormuz largely. Assets and stuff, we can likely to see those being released. However, Lebanon and indeed the Strait of Hormuz will be the main crux of this argument over the coming days.
And Fiona, oil markets are reacting to the uncertainty. What impacts are these tensions and the situation in the Strait of Hormuz having on energy flows and prices globally?
Yeah, well, we've seen a number of transits, which is positive. We've seen an increase in the oil being moved from the Gulf nations through the Strait of Hormuz and out to the likes of Pakistan, China, Thailand, as I mentioned. So that is positive, but we are seeing a little bit of a pullback with regard to barrel prices. in and around that $70 mark, which is a great improvement when we saw highs of $124 at the height of the conflict. But look, it's a wait and see situation with regard to how firm that we can make this memorandum and turn into a lasting ceasefire here in the region, and how that will impact the export for the likes of Qatar, Kuwait, etc., for not just oil but indeed natural gas, LNG. So it's very much a wait and see, but the Strait of Hormuz is relatively stable at the moment. There is continued unease among the likes of the civilian vessels. Of course, even just in the past week, we saw vessels targeted off the Omani coast. So it's very much, as I say, a wait and see situation on how things develop. But as it stands, it's quite positive. But we are very much waiting to see how these negotiations go in Qatar over the coming days. As I said, both sides are there for the past 24 hours holding those indirect talks, and it will really boil down to whether we can see both sides stick to this ceasefire agreement and keep those halted attacks, hold any further retaliation or movement against civilian vessels, as I mentioned. But we look at the likes of these foreign ships running through this shallow waterway. Today we saw another vessel, the IRGC, saying it struck ground off the Iranian coast in the Strait of Hormuz. But look, we look at Qatar, they're working very closely with Oman to maintain a safe passage, but traffic has, as I said, not returned to pre-war levels, and the security environment remains highly unpredictable. And the 4-day exchange of strikes that preceded the current stand-down window, it really just shows how quickly a dispute over reopening the Strait of Hormuz can spill over into broader military confrontation involving the US and Iran. So while there is currently a lull in direct attacks compared to when the height of the conflict, the combination of Iranian assertions of authority on this contested waterway and the tit-for-tat retaliation on both sides means that the situation is stable only in the narrow sense that neither side currently wants to tip over into open war. But it would take something as little as another ship ignoring Iranian warnings or an attack on a vessel to really upset either side, and that would see the Strait of Hormuz become the centre of the crisis once again, Tom.
Fiona, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it lots.